We're good. You're good to go with the live stream. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our summer term SACRE meeting. It's lovely to see you. I would have loved for this to have been a physical meeting, but with Delta variant, it's definitely safer that we are all at home. We have a couple of new people who joined us. So Jackie, welcome to the SACRE. I believe you are a new councillor who has joined us on the SACRE. You're very welcome. I don't know if you'd like to say hello to everyone, Jackie, and just see you pick up on the screen. You're on mute, Jackie. Jackie, you were on mute, I think, when you were saying hello. Never mind. It's all right, Jackie, you're muted. You can say hello later. Gotta love modern technology. I'm just going to pass to Catherine really quickly because Catherine is just going to go through apologies that we have received today. So Catherine, over to you.
Okay, Christine apologises, she's on holiday, and Jackie has another meeting starting at 6:55, so she will be leaving us at that point.
Okay.
That's the only apologies I have.
Okay, so a couple of other people may join in the meeting a little bit later on. Jackie, when you need to go, just go. Don't worry about sort of shouting by. I think we know that you've.
I will. Thank you very much.
There we go. I don't think we're going to be here very long. It's not the. It's not actually massive agenda. We'll see how we go. So item 2, minutes from the last meeting, and we'll take matters arising shortly. I hope you all had an opportunity to read them. Catherine wrote some wonderful minutes for us. Would somebody just be willing to propose them as a true and accurate account of our meeting? Could just thank you, Beth. And somebody to second them. Thank you, Lisa. I also should have said, sorry, if anybody has questions throughout the meeting, if on Teams, it obviously has that ability where you can pop your hand up. And if you pop your hand up, then Emily or myself will see. I think Emily will moderate. Emily, if you don't mind, in case I miss it. And then please do ask questions when we get to you. Thank you. Matters arising. So first of all, you just have to bear with me, everyone, because I've got like various screens open where I'm looking at different bits and bobs. One of our standard matters arising is always letting Catherine know places of worship. Catherine, I don't know if you had any updates or no. Okay, thank you. As always, I think it's always useful to have that on the minutes because it keeps it in our mind. And if we do have any links to matters arising, then we can share them with Catherine. And equally, if members of the public see things on the minutes, because I know members of the public do access the minutes, then they can also send them in as well. Thank you. The second one, membership. So Emily sent me some really useful an update this morning. So we now have Jackie who's joined us, who's replaced Graham Howe, and we've been in contact, well, Emily and Catherine have been in contact with Catholic Diocese. And at the last meeting, Beth and Philip were going to approach some contacts. And I don't know if you, Beth and Philip, have had an opportunity to do that. Beth, you're muted. Still muted. It's going to be the evening of the mute button, I think, this evening. So Beth and Philip, just pop something in the chat if you can, and then we can we'll pick that up about if you had an opportunity to approach anybody or contacts that you had from the Catholic Diocese. Item 3C. Mead State Resource Platform to the last hub meeting. I couldn't attend the last hub meeting, but Angela and Beth were able to attend. Angela, are you okay just reporting back on this one for everybody?
Yes, that's fine, no problem at all. Yeah, we just discussed the idea of a central hub for resources, and it was brought to our attention that there is a Blogspot page where advisors and people who are involved with the Pan Berkshire Hub can actually post resources online, and that's up and running. David Lanesmith is overseeing that, and I think he might be the only person putting things on there at the moment, but it's useful for teachers, and I've had a word with Emily about that, and she's going to pop it into Education News. So I hope I represented you well enough on that one.
Yep, thank you. And also you touched on the second one. Stephen and Angela suggest the hub idea of a list of schools to visit via online places of worship, and Angela mentioned Blogspot. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Angela.
Let's have a look. I'm going to look at my notes. I'm trying to be paperless. Not doing it very well though. No, I don't think there is anything to add there, except we did discuss at the hub the possibility of having a directory similar to the Crossing the Bridges directory of virtual visits, hopefully within the local area, but it was deemed that wasn't really necessary, and we didn't really have the capacity or the funds to implement anything like that at the moment. And there are lots of virtual tours out there that teachers can already access. So I think that would be the only other thing that I would add.
Thank you, Angela. Shahid, you had your hand up.
Yes, just a quick one, Angela, regarding the platform, resourcing platform, is it actually free for everyone to use, or is there any subscription for it?
No, there's no subscription. It's free to access, and anybody can get on there. Not just schools in Berkshire. Anybody who stumbles across it and knows it's there can access the resources on it.
Who actually manages the resource, the platform then? There must be some cost associated with who picks up the cost.
The Blogspot site itself is actually free. You can set up a blog for free on there, and the advisor for Reading, David Lanesmith, Mark Lanesmith, I should say, sorry, he's actually overseeing that. It was his initiative, and he's set it up, and he's popping resources on there as and when he can. But we could also do that as well. We could have access. He could give access to a limited number of people who are trusted and be able to pop resources on there as well. So certainly, myself, Stephen, Beth, and other SACRA members who might want to do that. That would be something we could ask him for access for.
Yeah, I think in principle, just last thing, I think in principle it's a very good idea. As of having that platform where people can actually, schools can share, access the resource. But obviously at the moment it's not being done systematically.
Thank you. The final matter arising was for members to send ideas for the surplus amount within our budget that we had. And Emily, do you want to discuss that now, or do you want to do that at a later point within?
I was going to suggest, Stephen, if we did it under the development plan and the budget, that would probably be the best place.
Yeah. And actually we've got some quite reasonably good news with that, but we'll save that for shortly. So moving on, item 4. So I'm going to hand over to Emily in a second. Emily's just going to give us all a little update of how Woking schools are doing. So Emily, over to you.
Unmute myself. Thanks, Stephen. Yes, so an update on how things are for Wokingham schools. So last time we met, schools were closed to most pupils and children were learning at home. So obviously since then, schools reopened again on the 8th of March. And what's been happening since then? Lots of things. So schools have had to put in place twice weekly lateral flow testing for all staff and for secondary school pupils. So they've been doing those tests twice a week at home. And obviously positive cases have continued to be picked up through the PCR tests and also through those lateral flow tests. So there've been staff and children having to isolate. Schools have continued with all their COVID secure arrangements, so children and staff still working in bubbles, socially distanced teaching if possible, enhanced cleaning, staggered starts and ends to the school day and lunch times. In secondary schools, teachers and children wearing masks. So yeah, it's not at all been back to normal yet. Teachers have been busy identifying children's gaps in learning as a result of remote learning, although remote learning was mostly very strong in the spring term. But still, we know that particularly some children are behind where they would normally be. So schools have been supporting catch up for those children, supporting well-being. And schools actually, I think most schools have been very careful about the language they use around catch up and making sure they talk in a very positive way with children about how they're going to move forward with their learning. Secondary schools have been very busy, as Stephen will probably attest, working on providing teacher assessed grades for GCSEs and A levels, and there's been an awful lot of work on assessment activities for secondary colleagues. What else has been happening? There's quite a bit of uncertainty for schools, as there is for us in the whole population. So, for example, schools have things planned in the summer term that they've been trying to decide whether they can go ahead with. So things like residential visits that they take children on. The current guidance says that schools are allowed to do those visits, but they have to be done in line with the current guidelines, which would mean children have to stay in their bubbles, for example. So some schools have come to the conclusion that actually it's not possible to do that. And similarly with transition visit days, where Year 6 children go and visit their secondary school, there have been a lot of question marks around whether that's going to be possible. What we have currently going on in Wokingham, as some of you will know, is surge testing, which means in 4 different parts of the borough, all residents are being encouraged to get a PCR test, even if they have no COVID symptoms, so that we can try to identify and contain the spread of the Delta variant. So schools that are in those areas have had to get all staff tested, and secondary schools have had to get all their students tested, and that's been quite a major operation. And a lot of people who work in the borough have been seconded to work on the surge testing, so that's a big operation that's happening at the moment. And obviously, as a result of that, more positive cases will be picked up from people who are asymptomatic, and there'll be more children and staff having to isolate. And secondary schools, I think, have brought back in mask wearing for teachers in classrooms and students in classrooms, which had been relaxed. So as far as the impact on the SACRE goes, I think visits to schools may still be difficult and not possible probably at the moment. Certainly in the team that I work in, the school improvement team, we're not visiting schools still. We thought we might be able to from the 21st of June, but we're now thinking that we won't be visiting schools this term. We're not sure about the autumn term. Schools are having some visitors of people that are supporting children's learning and well-being. But I think in terms of visits from SACRE members, we'll probably need to review that in the autumn term, but it's possible visits might not be possible for a while longer, I think. So when we come to talk about the development plan, we can perhaps think about whether there are any ways that SACRE members could visit schools virtually, perhaps. It would be good to get people's ideas on that. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Emily. Does anybody have any questions for Emily before Beth?
Thank you. Could I just add to that vaccinations for 18 to 24-year-olds start in those 4 wards tomorrow? So anyone between those ages can go along and have their first of 2 vaccinations.
I mean, it's not really Sacre thing, but I think it's worth noting and minuting just the Sacre's thanks to all the primary and secondary colleagues, and the fact that they're continuing to keep education going for our children during these really turbulent times is nothing short of amazing, in my opinion. So, Catherine, if you wouldn't mind just sort of saying thanks from all of the Sacre members to minuting our thanks from Sacre members to all of our primary and secondary colleagues as well. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, this is Angela and Emily are going to tag team this one, development plan and budget, and there's, like I said, some really good and exciting things with the budget.
Shall I share my screen, Angela, so people can actually look at the development plan and the budget? Would that be helpful?
I think it would be. Thanks, Emily.
Interesting. Teams has had an update recently, and it now looks different when you share your screen. So I'm just trying to figure out how I do that. Apologies, everyone. Yeah, sorry, Angela, I can't actually work out how to do that. Hopefully people have the agenda in front of them. And if you're able to have a look at the development plan and the budget documents as we're talking, that would probably be really helpful. Sorry, I can't share my screen.
Emily, have you tried open that above arrow, open share tray?
Yeah, I've tried that, Shahid, but for some reason, although I've got the agenda pack open on my computer, it's not giving me the option to choose that as a document that I can share. So
normally click on that document which you want to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Oh. I think that's someone else who's sharing that rather than me, but whoever it is, thank you.
That's me, Emily. It's me.
Thanks,
Okay.
Stephen. That's brilliant. Thank you.
So which page would you like?
So if you could go to the development plan page, which is
13.
Yeah, page 13. Great, thank you.
I can't see anything. So Emily, if anybody's have questions, or Beth, if one of you just wouldn't mind fielding questions.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, we'll do. So Angela, do you want to talk through the development plan, which at the moment actually is essentially the same as last year's, because we're waiting for further ideas from you. But Angela, over to you.
Yeah, as Emily said, it's all pretty standard stuff. There are just a couple of things to draw your attention to. We on the first page, point 3, we were looking to encourage Sacre members to go out and to be involved in schools. However, that's not really possible under the current circumstances. We will need to revise our development plan according to the current situation, and it might not be possible for quite some time for visitors to go into schools. I might suggest that perhaps that Sacre members have contact with schools, perhaps maybe that they might offer to be involved in perhaps assemblies in a virtual way rather than going into schools face to face. But it would be really good to hear any ideas that Sacre members have on that. I don't know if anybody has got anything they'd like to contribute. Or whether maybe it's something that we take out of the development plan for this year.
My initial thoughts, Angela, with that is, like, I think it would be great. And I remember years ago, Andrew, you'll remember this because you supported it. Oh. Can everyone just make sure you're on mute if you're talking? Thank you. Andrew, you'll remember this. When I was at Wangels, we did that inset where members of the Sacre came in and spoke to teachers and delivered some training. It'd be great to do something, I think, similar like that again, but equally talking to the students. But in my experience, sometimes virtual isn't as powerful if someone is actually there face to face, but that's just my experience as a teacher. So Angela, I feel I'd quite like to keep it in there, because I think it'd be great if Sacre members could go in and share their experience of their faith, but equally observe RS like actually within the classroom, because you have all been so involved over the last few years regarding the locally agreed syllabus, and I think it would be beneficial to actually see it in place. I wonder if it's worth maybe we just delaying things by maybe a term. So where we've got like in the autumn term, we want one visit. Maybe if we say no visits then, because we don't know where COVID's going and the Delta variant, but possibly maybe if we aim for this spring term 2022, maybe, if that makes sense, Angela. That's just my initial thoughts, everyone.
Seems sensible, and I can see that there are members who are doing assemblies in schools and so on, coming up in the chat there. So there is contact being made with schools, which is really positive.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really sensible suggestion. I don't know if anybody else would like to say anything else on that, but we're going to keep it in, but modify it to make sure that we are taking into consideration the circumstances. The other point that we were thinking about, Emily and I, is the provision of annual CPD. So this is on page 15 of the pack now, for secondary RE teachers and heads of RE. So the Secondary Federation Inset Day is not happening again this year. So funds that are usually allocated for that could be spent on other support for secondary schools. And I think, you know, we have discussed at length in the past that primary schools engage really well with the network meetings and so on, and that has been tried for secondary schools. However, there is perhaps a little less engagement, but we are trying to reach out to secondary teachers to make sure that that they're getting some really good CPD as well. We've previously run a GCSE training. It was really well received, but only a handful of teachers turned up for it. So anything that we can do to make sure that we are being as inclusive as possible with secondaries is going to be really, really important. And I think one of the things that we're going to touch on later is that we have got a project, conceptual understanding project, which is focused on transition and making sure that pupils coming up from the primary schools are secondary ready to do really good RE. You know, that there have been there has been some really good engagement from our secondary teachers with that. So we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. I don't know if there were any other points that we were going to raise there, Emily.
I can see that Shira's got her hand up, Angela, so maybe we'll just go to Shira first. Shira.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, we switched to virtual for the Judaism visits that we've been doing at schools. And initially it was just a temporary thing to deal with COVID. But what we've actually found is that a lot of schools are keeping going with that because it's just so easy. Now, when it comes to secondary teachers or school teachers having RE training, the thing is, I wonder whether you should consider that the virtual idea is not just a temporary thing, because a lot of what puts people off coming to any kind of event like that is having to schlep somewhere. It's all that time you spend traveling there and you're tired after a day, you don't want to get in the car and drive somewhere else, particularly if you've got one teacher here and one teacher there. And really, really consider the idea of offering virtual training for teachers as a real option aside from COVID, just because people might be more likely to show up.
Thanks, Shira. Yeah, actually, Angela and I met early to have a little pre-meeting this afternoon, and we had exactly that conversation this morning and this afternoon, just saying that actually one of the positive things to come out of the pandemic is that we've got a lot more options in terms of how we offer CPD to teachers now, which is a really positive thing. So thank you for that. Just one other thing we were going to, or I could share about the development plan, is that we've already got a plan for the autumn term primary network meeting, which Angela has very kindly set up with one of her colleagues in RE Today, who is an early years expert. And she's going to do some training at the autumn term primary network on RE in the early years foundation stage. So that's really exciting. We've got that planned already. So maybe what I should go on to talk about, because there's kind of a big chunk missing from the development plan at the moment, which relates to, we were talking at the last SACRE meeting about the fact that we had quite a chunk of money left from the last financial year that we hadn't spent. And I thought at the last meeting that we were going to have to find a way of spending that quickly before the end of the financial year, or we would lose it. But the very good news is that we've actually been able to arrange to carry that forward to this financial year. So what you've got in the agenda pack is a budget document for the end of the last financial year, which I think is on the next page, Stephen. Thank you. If you keep scrolling. So that, yeah, this is the one. So this shows you the position at the end of the last financial year, which shows that we had about £2,800 remaining, which we've carried forward. And so I've put together a draft budget plan for this year, which is going up one page, Stephen, back to the draft budget plan. And I've planned a budget based on all the activities that we normally do and everything that's in the development plan currently. But there's a chunk of that money still to be allocated. So yeah, thanks, Stephen. At the bottom there, it says funds still to be budgeted for, around £2,600. And actually, it's a little bit more than that because the hub have invoiced us for £500 rather than £900. So they have warned us they may need a little bit more money for the rest of the year. So I think we should perhaps have some in reserve for the hub. But we've got more like, if we include some money that we've budgeted anyway for secondary training, the 250 that you can see in the budget there, and we put that together with the extra that we've got from the hub, we've got about £3,000 to play with. So we have got some ideas to share with you about how that money could be used. And obviously we want to get your ideas, but I can see that Anju's got her hand up. So Anju.
Yeah, good evening. All I wanted to say was that there is probably more because you've got travelling expenses in there. And with us being virtual, you've saved on those travelling expenses.
Yes, thank you, Anju. I was just talking to Angela earlier and saying it's really difficult putting together a budget, especially in a pandemic, because you have to keep money in reserve in case you need it. But obviously, if we continue being virtual for the rest of the year, then we won't need those travel costs. You're right. But I think we need to have them in there because the situation with us having remote meetings is that I believe because we're a statutory group, Democratic Services will instruct us as to when we need to go back to having face-to-face meetings and whether we can carry on being virtual. So we don't know when they might tell us that we need to go back to in-person meetings. So I think we need to budget for those travel costs in case they're needed. But obviously, if we get towards the end of the year and we know they're not going to be needed, we can think of a way of spending that money. So Angela and myself and Stephen and Beth have had various discussions. Oh, sorry, Catherine, I can see your hands up.
Emily, I think Democratic Services told us that there was nothing in like the Constitution to say that we couldn't carry on virtually.
Oh, did they? Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
I thought I sent you the email, but yeah, that apparently they said that lots of other councils have just decided that this is the way they're going to carry on for most
thank you,
meetings.
Catherine.
I can forward that to everybody so you can see.
Thank you. I'd misunderstood that actually, probably read it too quickly and sort of misread it. Thank you.
Mind if I just jump on the back of that?
Certainly.
Yeah, sure, David. Or sorry, was that?
Can I just say, certainly for a meeting I had of the Wellbeing Board last week, the members had to be in the council, but the other people were on the web. So it's the members who have to be there. So that's the important thing. So it might be that we can do a hybrid, and just the members have to be there with perhaps the chair and the vice chair, and then the other people not there. But if we don't have to be there at all, let's keep it like this.
I was going to actually say the opposite, David. I think sometimes it's quite nice for us all to get together, but I think that's something we can do once we know where we're going with the pandemic. We know where things are going, then we can do like a poll, and we can see what people feel. And if there is precedent set with other local authorities, if people feel they want to carry on doing things virtually they can, or if we want to feel like we want to do the hybrid model like you suggested, David, or all of us at some point coming back together, that's definitely an option as well. But I guess it's just a watch this space and see what the pandemic. But I think from my experience, I think it's quite nice to actually physically all of us get together in a room and actually see people. But that's for, I guess, further down the line.
Yeah, and it might be that we do that once or twice a year and do it on Zoom, once or twice a year. It's making sure that we cater for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll just share with you the ideas that we've had about how we could possibly spend this approximately £3,000 that we've got to play with. It would be great to get your thoughts on it. So one thought we had is that because we do network meetings for primary schools and we always do subject leader training for primary coordinators, and because there's no secondary federation inset day for us to contribute to, it would be appropriate for us to slightly prioritise secondary schools over primary colleagues, probably, because currently we're not offering anything for secondary schools. So that was one thought we had. Basically, the two options we've been discussing are providing resources for schools and or training for schools. So it's really great having Angela's contact as part of RE Today, because she has knowledge of lots of fantastic resources that RE Today produce, and also colleagues with varied expertise who we can draw on. So Angela suggested that actually it could be really effective to provide schools with resources, so they've got something tangible that we know every school in the borough would get. And she thought that could be a way of kind of triggering schools to engage with any training that we were going to offer. We could sort of say, here's a gift from the SACRE, and we're also offering this training that's coming up. So Angela shared with me a couple of excellent resources. So she shared with me a resource called Picturing Islam, Picturing Muslims, which is for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. Which is a really great resource, and also a resource called What Happens In, which looks at various different places of worship and actually would go really well with the Hub's Real People, Real Faith project, which Angela's going to talk to you a bit later about, and that's a primary resource. So we've looked into the costs of posting resources to schools, and Angela's managed to negotiate a brilliant discount for us from RE Today. So it would cost about £160 for us to send one resource in terms of postage costs, one resource to every school. Those resources that I've mentioned, if we were to send the What Happens In, one per primary school, and the Islam resource, one to every secondary school, I'm just trying to do some quick maths, that would add up with the postage to just under £2,000. So we'd have still just over £1,000 to spend on training, perhaps. With training, there's various options, as Shira was just talking about. There's obviously remote sort of live sessions that people come to at a particular time, or there's pre-recorded sessions. And Angela was saying that RE Today have offered pre-recorded sessions a lot during the pandemic, and they've actually been really popular because teachers can then access them at a time that's convenient for them. And if you follow them up with a live Q&A session where they can bring any questions and talk with other teachers about the pre-recording they've watched, that can be a really good option. I think probably we shouldn't plan for in-person training at the moment because of everything being so uncertain. We don't know if that's going to be possible. So RE Today have a directory of different training courses they can offer, which is really extensive and varied. And Angela's also very open to RE Today putting together some bespoke training for Wokingham. So, for example, we could have some training that help teachers to understand and use the Hub's Real People, Real Faith materials. We could have some training, a little workshop maybe on the conceptual understanding document that we're working on through the network meeting at the moment. So it could be something quite bespoke for Wokingham. We talked about maybe having a conference, which we quite liked in the sense that it could be quite high profile and it could be for primary and secondary, and we could have a whole day with some sessions that are for primary and secondary and some that are for the different phases. The only problem with that I can think of is that I know some head teachers, particularly at this sort of time when they're helping children to catch up from the pandemic, they're quite reluctant to let teachers have a day out of school. So that might be tricky. So another way of doing it might be, rather than having one day, maybe we choose a period, say 5 or 6 weeks. So it could be, for example, second half of the autumn term, where we have various things happening after school, various twilights, pre-recorded sessions, Q&A sessions to follow up on the recorded sessions. And we could call it something like the Wokingham Festival of RE or something, but it would not happen on one day, it would happen over half a term. So that's kind of where we've got to. And Angela's been brilliant in negotiating discounts for us for the training as well as the resources. So I think that's sort of where we've got to. I don't know if Angela or Stephen or Beth want to add anything to what I've said, and of course we'd love to hear members' thoughts.
All I just wanted to add, thank you, Emily, sorry. All I just wanted to add is that Angela was very, I know that we know that Angela does work for RE Today, but Angela was very open to us going to any organisation or any advisors, and there wasn't a hard sale or a hard push at all. So please just, when we're sort of talking about that, there was, like I said, there was nothing from Angela whatsoever saying you have to do this, you have to do that. It was all very open. Beth, myself and Emily felt that Angela is an amazing resource. She comes with lots of contacts and links that we felt, we obviously have this money, and we felt perhaps maybe sort of use Angela's experience and the company that she works for this time, and then we can sort of make some decisions. If we really like what we've got, then who knows, 2-3 years down the line, if we have money again, then we may use them again. But just thank you to Emily and Angela for all the sort of the work they've done in the background for this. My advice, and please do jump in everyone else in a second, is I suggest that possibly we go along with the idea of perhaps maybe offering those pre-recorded training sessions and over a long period of time. And I like the idea of a festival RE over a few weeks, but that's just my opinion. Please do, anybody. Beth, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, we've spoken about this quite a lot. My concern about sending resources into schools is that they get lost. They're put down on a surface somewhere and they're very quickly lost and never used. And if the cost was minimal for doing that, that would be fine, but it is quite a large cost. I don't know what Stephen's opinion is of that as a teacher. I'm not a practitioner, but I know it happened to a lot of my financial education stuff. They never found it again.
I know when we've had resources, we have put them sometimes on a shelf and maybe not always looked at them, if I'm being honest. For me, I prefer things virtual because we use a lot of, I don't know if other people within their sort of schools, we use lots of things on Google Drive. So if we have things electronically, then we look at it a lot more. But that's just me.
One suggestion, that's a really good point. One suggestion Angela made was that if whatever resource we offered, if we decide to do that, we could offer a training session that goes with the resource, so that teachers are being trained in how they could use that resource, which might help prevent what you're talking about, Beth, which is a really good point.
Shahid, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just actually following what Beth has said, is I think nowadays, most in my experience and talking to the teachers, a lot of the resources are being put online. And we talked about the platform before. Could we not actually do that, put that on the platform, and schools can access it whenever they need to. This way we save the cost, whatever the 100 and something pound which was mentioned. I thought it's quite a considerable cost just to post the material to the school, which has potentially, as Beth said, may or may not be used, and just put that on the shelf to raise, gather dust basically, and never to be touched again. But with online resources, it's there, it's a minimum cost to us, but also it's available to them whenever they need it. So I would actually suggest we're going that particular route rather than posting it.
I think the only thing I'm just thinking, Angela, please do jump in. And whilst, like I said, I do also prefer things electronically, would there be like copyright issues and stuff with things being, and then we wouldn't be able to, I don't know if we'd be able to guarantee that schools, therefore, they wouldn't share things with other schools, if that makes sense. I'm not sure, Angela.
Yeah, we don't really have any resources of the nature that I suggested that could be shared online. I mean, we do have members' resources, and we have free to access resources on our website anyway, and they are plentiful. What I would say is that the resources that we're suggesting for secondary, for example, that they do link to online resources as well. And I think the idea of trying to engage those secondary teachers by giving them something in their hands as a gift, and then linking some future training to it could be a way around the not very high uptake that we've been having with our secondary CPD provision. Maybe something else for primary, but really open to hear people's ideas, and try and work around those if we can. Or it might be that I know of another provider that could do something else for you as well. So not here to sell RE today for you. Want to give you the best advice for your SACRE and for your teachers and pupils.
Sharia, you had your hand up.
The question I have is these resources. I mean, if I were going to spend a lot of money on something, the first thing I would do is I would sort of randomly select 2 or 3 people, give them the resources, and then ask them, are they useful? And if they get positive feedback that they're really good, then you go and give them to everybody else. And that way you can protect yourself from spending a lot of money on something when you don't know whether it's going to work or not. So rather than do the big bang, why not do a bit, send it to a couple of schools, see what they think, ask them, is this the best thing for you? They might come back and say, you know what, actually I would have preferred if you'd done something else instead. And then you spend your money to the best benefit.
I think, sorry, just to respond to that, if I could, Stephen. One of the benefits of working with RE Today and Angela is that they're a national organisation who are doing this work nationally. So I think Angela is recommending resources to us based on her, correct me if I'm wrong, Angela, but based on your experience with RE Today of knowing that schools like these resources and use them. So that's.
So these are resources that we already, because the question is this what they want? Is that question already something we've answered? In which case, then Shahid's point becomes irrelevant. Because the first thing I would do is I would check to see, what do you want? You know.
I hear what you're saying, but actually we've got this money that we weren't expecting. And like I have said, that I do prefer electronic things, but equally I think on the other hand, it's quite nice that, I know when I was head of RS at Wangels, it would be quite nice if we get like a free textbook from things, especially if it was like came with a letter and stuff. It was just, it's money we weren't expecting. It's money that I think we could, I don't know, gift our schools with something. I appreciate I'm playing devil's advocate quite a lot in this debate. Catherine, you've got your hand up. And Beth, I'm just going to say goodnight to the boys, so if you wouldn't mind just taking over chairing for a couple of minutes.
I'd rather say goodnight to the boys.
Oh, I'd be happy to, but it's being live streamed and all. And...
Okay, can we carry on with that debate and see what we think? Have we got any other teachers among us who have a view?
Catherine's got her hand up, Beth.
Catherine?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, kind of, RE in our school, obviously it's been really difficult to share resources because we're in our bubbles, we're being really careful. But actually, I did see in RE today, Angela will be pleased with this, I saw in RE today, Angela, the you know, the wooden tree with all the different comments on it, and I can't remember who was making it. But actually, I did contact, you know, all the teachers in our school and said, would they like one of those for each of their classrooms to kind of, you know, start with debates and things. It also has a beautiful crossover into PSHE and RE. And all of the teachers in our school said they would love one of those wooden trees for each of their classrooms, right from foundation through to year 6. So it's something that I'm organising for our school. So, and actually they're kind of feeling that, yeah, we've recently, resources for RE have been few and far between. And so starting to offer just within our school environment, saying, yeah, we'd love resources. We'd like things to help us and to aid things. So I think, I guess I'm a bit more, I like physical resources. I like tangible things I can hold. And, you know, the wooden tree with all of those different quotes from a multi-faith approach is a beautiful thing that you can then pass around a class. So actually, I kind of, you know, I think it is something that is wanted and needed at the moment as well, extra resources.
Thank you, Catherine. Sharia, you have your hand up. I don't know if you have, or if that is a legacy hand. Anyone else who has anything they'd like to add?
Stephen, I would just say that the resources that we've discussed, they have got that kind of wide appeal in the classroom. So the What Happens in pack for primary, it's designed for primary schools all the way from early years foundation phase, but I've actually used it with Key Stage 3 pupils as well when I was still teaching. So it can be used, you know, across the phases, and it's a resource that gets pupils to think really deeply about, you know, what happens in a place of worship, and that links really well with the Real People, Real Faith project. So that's been really carefully selected, and the Picturing Islam, Picturing Muslims. That's been selected because it's a very current and recent resource. It's only about a year old. We're getting a lot of really positive feedback from teachers. We're running training on that, so it would be really easy to link a training session, either pre-recorded or a live but virtual training session to that, and a Q&A perhaps as well. And we know that, you know, most schools are teaching Islam at one point or another, and especially for GCSE as well. So we've, you know, considered the resources that are going to have, you know, a wide appeal there and will be useful to the majority of teachers.
Thank you, Angela. Lisa?
Yeah, just to say, I think resources linked to a training session sounds like a good idea, so I'd back that.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other comments? Because I think what I'm going to do is take a vote on this. So, Emily, can you just reiterate to everyone, and just with that first sort of package of money in terms of it's going to be 2 resource books and potentially some online training, is that correct?
Yeah, so if we were to buy the Picturing Islam resource for secondary schools and the What Happens In for primary schools, together with the postage, that would come to just under 2,000, I think. So then we'd have about £1,100 left that we could use for some form of training, or alternatively, we could spend the whole 3,000. We could not buy resources and spend the whole 3,000 on some form of training. So I guess the first kind of big decision to make is whether we want a combination of resources and training or just training.
Okay, so if we just go for that first option, and if everyone just has one vote on the 2 options, and if you do it with your hand up icon, then we'll be able to see and get numbers for the minute purposes. I don't know how you do polls on Teams. I'm sure there must be a way. But with that first option of resources and training, if people just pop their hands up, I can see all the participants. And if your hand icon, if you don't have a hand icon, just sort of shout so we can see. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Catherine, that's 8 people who have voted for resources and training. If you wouldn't mind just popping your hands down, those of you that have just voted for that one, thank you. Philip, I'm going to be a bit rude and lower your hand. And then finally, the second option of just training, just again with the quick show of hands. Okay, I'm not getting any hands up on that. If you voted for that one, or if that's your preferred option, please do just shout out, just so we have it for the minute purposes. So Catherine, just for the minute purposes then, so what we have decided as SACRE with that sort of money is that we're going to go for buying some resources for our primary and secondary schools, and also provide some training as well. And I suppose we can, Angela, we can sort of discuss what the actual training would be and the actual package that we'll be able to offer them at some point. Beth.
Thank you, Stephen. Could we make sure when those resources go out?
Beth, you've muted.
Sorry. Could we have a letter that goes out with those resources from you as chair of the SACRE to make sure schools know what they're getting, who it's from and why, and what the programme will be that links into it?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that and work with Angela on that. And equally, I'm not precious. If anybody else from the SACRE wants to send the letter, I'm more than happy to work with you on that. So yeah, totally open to that. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on? No, thank you everyone. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the comments and the questions. It was really useful. So item 6, moving on to Angela, just some feedback from teacher networks and training opportunities. You kind of touched on this already, so probably be a short one.
Yeah, we had the primary network on the 23rd of March, which was really good in respect of getting primary teachers together with secondary teachers. So we had secondary teachers engaging in that and looking at the conceptual understanding project for transition and putting forward their ideas so that we can come up with a document as part of the booklet on all of the subjects on the national curriculum. So RE will be there as well as those national curriculum subjects. So that was really well received. There were 12 people there, like I say, a mix, mostly primaries, but some secondaries. And we had a teacher who was speaking from Wangels about the project, which was really helpful. And the next meeting is planned for the 8th of July. And that is going to be finalising the conceptual understanding document. putting that in front of teachers and seeing what they think of it and if they have any amendments and so on. So it's really important that we get that teacher voice there. They will be considering the Real People, Real Faith project, and there'll be feedback from the launch on the 28th of April, which sadly I wasn't able to go to. So we're going to have feedback from somebody who was there kindly. And we will be looking at the Ofsted review as well during that meeting. Then in September. Actually, it'll be November, the autumn meeting. My colleague Fiona Moss is going to be doing some early years foundation phase training as well. So lots of opportunities there, and the feedback from that network meeting was also really positive, and teachers really appreciated the chance to network with one another.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, so if there's no questions on that, we'll move on. So item 7, SACRE projects, and I have to confess, I actually don't know what this item is about. Emily, I don't know if you can.
I think we've covered it, Stephen, because it's, I think the only sort of Wokingham SACRE project we've got ongoing at the moment is the conceptual understanding document, which Angela's referred to a few times, which is, as she said, it's to support transition and to try to get cohesion between the big concepts that are taught in RE in primary schools and that seamless transition through to secondary schools. So hopefully by the time we next meet, we'll have a final document that we will share with SACRE members for you to see the results of that.
Thank you. Philippa. Is it? No. Yeah, it is Philippa, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, it's because it's come up.
Early years training. I was wondering if there was a possibility that could be shared with the early years hub with Anne Stopforth, because that would be really good. It sounds like a really valuable training, and the people at the RE network might not necessarily be the people who would benefit from that. So I wondered if it's worth sharing that more widely.
That's a really good idea, Philippa. Yeah, thank you. Will do.
Thank you. Item 8, updates from the hub. Like I said, I couldn't attend the hub, so Beth and Angela, this is over to you both.
If I could start, and Angela, I'm sure I'll work together on this. We had a really good, well-organised hub meeting this time. I think the hub's working very well in that we've worked hard this year on producing films for places of worship. Anne the chairman of the hub took it to the NASACA conference, and Angela was there. So I think Angela might want to say something about the success of it.
Yes, I've got some PowerPoint slides about the Real People, Real Faith project, and I think the other thing that we need to touch on as well from that hub meeting is that we are now starting to think about syllabus review and whether we are going to be coming up with a radical change to the syllabus, or whether there will be minor tweaks, which I think will be necessary as things have moved on quite considerably. So we are in the process now of thinking about how that's going to work. So the 3 advisors for Pan Berkshire are going to co-lead on that, and the first thing that we're going to do is get some teacher voice by surveying teachers to ask them what they think about what's going well with the current syllabus, what they like about it, what perhaps they would change, whether they want a radical departure or just minor amendments made to it. So so that is our first port of call there. So so if anybody has any ideas or questions with regards to the syllabus review, then more than happy to try and answer, but we're really at the very early stages at the moment.
There will be a cost to that, of course, Emily, so that spare money may not be as spare as we think it is.
I think from what I understand, Beth, thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point. The money probably won't be needed at least the bulk of it until the next financial.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
will flag up to finance that that is on the horizon. So yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Beth. And well, both of you, Beth and
the
Angie.
other thing from the hub was that we've already applied to one of the Reading, I can't remember the name of it, charities for some more money to make some more films for the Real People, Real Face thing. We were tipped off that there was money that they had almost invited us to apply for, so we couldn't refuse. But I've asked if we can have a look at some of the films that was made. Those of us that were involved really enjoyed being there and seeing the filming done by a professional filmmaker, and then eventually seeing the edited films that are ready to go out. And if we could have a session on those at some stage, just to show members of the SACRE what we spent quite a lot of money on this year, and how if we hadn't been a hub, this would never have been possible. And so if we could have a look at that sometime.
Is it worth maybe in our October meeting, and Angela, I don't know how sort of you feel about it, but possibly inviting Anne Andrews as sort of the hub leader, or Angela, I don't know if you want to present some of the.
Angela has actually got some slides prepared to share with members this evening.
Okay.
Just a very brief overview and a clip, and also to show members where they can find the resources to have a look at them at their leisure.
Yeah, definitely. I hope everybody doesn't mind. Angela, if you wouldn't mind sharing, but actually I think it's just really useful as members to see what has been produced by the hub. Yeah,
sure. I'm going to have to go through the trauma of trying to share my screen now with the sound. We had some fun and games with this earlier, didn't we, Emily? So, yeah, so let's see. Okay. Is that working?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So
can I just remind everyone to mute them mics?
Okay. Right, so just some quick slides really just to talk you through the Real People, Real Faith project. And we've talked about it a lot in our SACRE meetings, and some people will be more aware than others what is actually going on with that project. But I think it's a real testament to the hub that this project has been seen through to completion, and that's within the really difficult circumstances that we found ourselves in with the pandemic, and also there is the possibility of extra work, as Beth was just saying. So the resources are now being hosted on the NatRe website. So they're free to access there, and they're really easy to find. If you just Google NatRe and Real People, Real Faith, it just comes up straight away. So they're arranged by key stage, and they have the videos for each faith community, along with a PDF which gives some ideas for how to use in the classroom, and with some key concepts and keywords. So really easy to find. I would take you there, but I had problems linking to an online resource very recently when I was presenting. I don't want that to happen again. So I will make sure that I share the link with you so that you can have a look in your own time. So the aim of the project was to create really good quality films for use in RE lessons in primary and secondary, cover a range of religions, and have a focus on diversity within and across religions. And we wanted the films to directly reflect the syllabus, so they could directly influence what's going on in the classroom, and help and support what teachers do in their RE day to day. So we wanted to encourage teachers to engage, and they did. They came and asked questions at the various places of worship. So I've listed the places of worship there. And whilst you can't see the teachers in the clip, they were there, and initially there were 2 or 3 teachers going along, and then as the pandemic progressed, we were limited to 1, but we did get a really good level of teacher engagement there. So next we have filming planned. Well, it was planned at this stage, but I think it might have already gone ahead at Catholic Church in Windsor, and the possibilities of looking at Buddhist and humanist participants. And the pupils study humanism and Buddhism in secondary in the agreed syllabus, and some teachers might even introduce those belief systems lower down in primary school as well. So we're hoping that we can do something with that as well, and involve, you know, a more diverse range of churches and mosques in addition. So the focus was very much on the key questions in the syllabus. So I've just listed which questions were our focus. So the teachers went along with a professional filmmaker who gave us a really good deal, actually, and did a really good job, we think. And they asked questions around these key questions to, you know, the real people in their real places of worship. So I can show you an example. I thought a Key Stage 2 example might be good to show you. It's just a few minutes long. And at the launch event, these are the questions that teachers were asked to consider before they then went into their breakout rooms to have discussions. So I'm hoping that this is going to work. Doesn't seem to want to do it, does it? Let's try again. No.
Angela, would it work from if you
It needs to be. The reason because we believe that the Quran is the final book of God, and therefore it needs to cater for all ages. And therefore the needs that we have, modern day needs, we need to find answers in the Quran. So it has to have multiple readings and understanding. For example, I may read a verse in the Quran and I may be able to extract an ethical and moral lesson from that. Another individual may be able to extract a philosophical argument, another individual of a mystical argument, and likewise another individual may be able to find some linguistic arguments. So the variety of interpretation is actually quite healthy for the human mind, and also that because the Quran is claiming to be a timeless book, an ageless book, therefore it needs to be, it should be able to be interpreted variantly and also cater for the modern needs.
From an Islamic perspective, we believe that Islam has come for every person of every nation, of every time. So for that to be possible, there does need to be an ability for people to interpret the Holy Scriptures in different ways. We've seen with the development of science that certain interpretations of Holy Scriptures have actually evolved, and our understanding of the Scriptures has improved. So that's just one example. Also, we find that with the effect of, say, globalization, where the societies are a lot more diverse, this is a much more challenging environment than perhaps the original environment where the scriptures were revealed. Therefore, I do believe that sacred texts such as the Holy Quran or even traditions like Hadith should be open to interpretation.
Okay. Apologies, I actually showed you the Key Stage 3 clip there. Somehow I skipped forward too far. So that's a that gives you a good idea of the quality of the clips throughout. There were some that were you know, the people were more articulate than others, and some used some quite complex language for pupils to engage with. But on the whole, they're really useful clips that will sit well in the classroom. And if teachers plan for some of that complexity there, then I still think that they're really good, really appropriate, and really usable for the pupils that they're going to end up hopefully in front of. So this was an example of a breakout room from the launch session. So teachers were encouraged to really think about how they would use the different films, the ones that that they were focusing on. Some were from Islam, some of them were from Hinduism, I understand. And they were really encouraged to think about how they would go away and use those films in the classroom for the benefit of their learners. So there was a Q&A panel at the end, which involved some of the people that were actually in the films. So I think that would have been really useful for the teachers to be able to ask them questions directly as well. So that's just a kind of whistle-stop tour of the Real People, Real Faith projects. I'm happy to, if any of you want to ask me questions, I'm more than happy to oblige.
Angela, I know that Philippa attended the launch, so I don't know if there's anything Philippa would like to add.
Yeah, it was really well attended. It was a lot of people said that they liked the fact that there was a whole range of ages that were answering the same questions. That was really powerful. And that idea that they were answering the same questions, so that sort of personal opinion side of it, you know, that real diversity in views was really appreciated. They felt that it was because they were local places that some of our children would recognise. That was a really powerful thing. And they could see the links in the agreed syllabus to the questions that the people were answering. So those were sort of the real strengths. They did, and it was quite interesting because there were some comments, like someone said, well, we don't see much of the places of worship. Why is that? And actually, it was helpful because the panel were then able to say, well, that wasn't the purpose. It was lovely to be there, but the purpose was really the verbal articulation. Somebody else asked, why not children? Why weren't there any children? And again, they said there's lots of videos on the BBC featuring children, that this was a different slant, and the fact that the articulate views that adults could give were really strong for children to listen to. So it was really interesting, and I think having that panel afterwards sort of quality assured it, because people were asking questions and they were saying no, you know. So I think people were much more confident through hearing from that sort of panel question and answer session. The one thing I guess that I came away with was the importance of publicising it, because obviously a lot of money's been spent on it and it's a really powerful resource, but we just need to make sure that everybody knows about it. So when Wokingham Primary Heads, I'll make sure that I sort of discuss it. Obviously the RE networks will be a really good place as well. But yeah, I was glad I went, and I had sort of sloped in not really expecting it, and she said, Philippa, you're from Wokingham, and I was like, oh. So yeah, she was very clued up. So I'm glad to represent Wokingham.
Thank you, Angela. And Philippa, does anybody have any questions for Angela? No? Is there any other hub updates that you'd like to share, Angela? Angela, you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, I knew I'd do it at some point. Yeah, I think that's all for the hub at the moment.
Thank you. Andrew, it's you coming up again. So it's national updates, item 9 relating to education, Nari.
Yeah, so there's lots and lots of updates that have been sent out in the agenda pack. Emily did ask me to just prepare a few slides just to take you through the Ofsted research review on RE. So if you don't mind, I will just talk us through that as briefly as I can. Will that be okay?
Yep, thank you. That'll be great.
So I have to try and turn my screen again. This time I don't need sound though, so it's not so difficult. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. There has been a research review on religious education. I believe that Ofsted does these for all subjects, and the purpose of the presentation is just to give SACRE members a very brief overview and to start us thinking about what that research review means for us. So I think it's a very positive document that's going to have a good impact on the provision of RE. Came out on the 12th of May, and it sets out some of the expectations and principles behind what makes good RE. But it's very careful to say that there's not one way of doing good RE. It allows for a range of possibilities, but it does make some recommendations in a way, because it just suggests that there are some common features of good RE that inspectors see when they go into schools. So it tackles some of the questions that we've been asking for a while. It deals with the issue of compliance, and it also raises issues about teacher confidence and subject knowledge and so on. So it's a very thorough review, and I would just say that this isn't the end point of the review, because as inspections begin to open up, the intention is that evidence is going to be collated from deep dives into RE, and that there's going to be an update on the quality of RE in 2022. So that's worth us keeping in mind. So at the centre is the curriculum as the main driver for delivering quality education. And one of the things that is really important in this report, and is referred to all the way through, is this idea that good RE underpins these three types of knowledge. So the substantive knowledge, so that's the stuff of the subject, you know, knowing that the Quran is the holy book for Muslims, knowing that you know, in Christianity what the meaning of incarnation is, and so on. Second is ways of knowing, so it's often called disciplinary knowledge. So you can look at RE topics through different lenses. So you can look at them through sociological lenses, or the lenses of a theologian, or anthropologist, and so on and so forth. And third is personal knowledge. That links really well to the idea of worldviews, where personal worldviews come into play. And it's about building people's awareness of their own presuppositions, their values, and it links in with spiritual moral development. So a good curriculum for RE is not one thing, but it should be coherent, should be carefully constructive. It should avoid oversimplification and make sure that there is diversity within and across religions being recognised, and it should ensure accuracy, that there is diversity there, and also that it is properly scholarly. And the ways in which schools do that can be achieved in many different ways, but those are the features that Ofsted are looking for in good RE. Interestingly, they talk about RE as being preparing pupils for life in a multi-religious but also a multi-secular world. So there's this recognition that you know, that not all people who are not religious believers, they're not all humanists, for example, that there's a range of belief systems that are secular belief systems as well. Okay, so within this report, there are some common themes that come up again and again. And one of the things that this report really does is it really hammers home, if you like, the importance of RE and its place in the curriculum, and it gives some clarity to the kind of legal strictures around RE. 3 different types of knowledge is something that we will need to think about when we are looking at the curriculum, the syllabus review. The importance of CPD and subject knowledge. So the report acknowledges that out of all the subjects on the curriculum, RE is one of the ones that is taught most commonly by people who have no formal qualification in a subject related to RE, and that there is a lack of teacher confidence in lots of settings for RE. And I think that's something that we need to be thinking about, mindful of when we're planning what we do as a SACRE with CPD. So collectively enough comes up quite a lot. So in subject terms, this requires that RE curriculum comprises collectively enough of the knowledge and skills that would amount to a high standard of subject education at primary and secondary level. So what they're asking for there is that the knowledge and skills that are being taught to the children, being developed in the children, are wide ranging enough for them to be able to develop their knowledge and understanding and skills in RE. So balance is really important. So it's not really about covering a greater number of religions or covering them in depth. It's really encouraging teachers to think about the RE as a learning journey, and to make sure that there is chances in a well-planned curriculum to revisit knowledge and to develop and make sure that that students develop those 3 different types of knowledge as they go along. One of the things that the report pointed out was that RE suffers from weak framing in some settings, where it's sometimes conflated and mixed up with other subjects. So it could be social studies or RE as PSHE and so on. And it's really a call to schools to make sure that RE is properly there and it's properly distinctive, I would say. Schools that limit good quality RE through their decision-making processes come under fire to a certain extent in this report, and it doesn't look very favourably upon things like drop-down days and so on. So it's really asking schools to consider that proper time is given to RE, that properly equipped and qualified teachers are teaching the subject as well. So thinking about where we are as SACRE, these are really pivotal comments from Ofsted here, and a pivotal report in helping us to design a locally agreed syllabus, which is upon us soon, and thinking about our provision of CPD for teachers, and also in how we monitor and evaluate schools and their standards in RE, and give advice to the local authority on that. There's a list of questions. I'm not going to go into too much depth here, but we need to consider these questions perhaps in a later meeting in a little bit more depth around how this report can help us to frame our agreed syllabus conference and the production of a new curriculum. How we can make sure that teachers are getting really good high quality CPD in RE, and thinking about what can we do in order to make sure that time allocation is adequate for RE, and that pupils are really able to develop their knowledge and skills. So as I said at the beginning, in the spring term of 2022, Ofsted will be publishing a report on the quality of RE curriculums in schools, and they're going to gather evidence for that through deep dives during inspections. So there will be, you know, a number of deep dives into RE coming up. So I've included there, and I'll share this PowerPoint with Emily so she can share it with the rest of you. There are two films there that will help you to hopefully better understand what's in that report, that you can watch in your own time. And if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to try and help.
Thank you, Angela. That was very, very useful, and even as a subject leader for RS, it was useful for me as well. Are there any questions anybody has? No? Are there any other national or updates that you'd like to share, Angela?
Well, there is lots on here. I think Emily and I were discussing the national updates, and lots of them can actually go into the education news, because lots of them are very useful for teachers. So I won't go through all of them. I will just point out that NATRE have issued a call to action and asked the government to address the consequences of neglect of teachers of RE. So that's something that's underway at the moment. There are a number of podcasts that teachers will want to engage with, including on decolonising RE. And a really good film actually called Nobody Stands Nowhere, which sounds grammatically incorrect. It puts me on edge a little bit. Nobody Stands Nowhere. It's a film by the Theos think tank, and it's about understanding and enriching the religion and worldviews curriculum. It's only a few minutes long, and I'd really suggest having a look at that, because it's a lovely animation, and you can use that with teachers in schools and so on. And it just gives you a flavour of what we mean when we say religion and worldviews. There is Emily, did we want to mention the data course that is running with?
Oh yes, so we've had information from NASACA that they're running a session for SACREs on how SACREs can better use data to inform their knowledge of RE in their schools and to support their conversations with the local authority. And it sounds really useful. Neither myself or Angela or Beth is able to go. But if any SACRE members would like to go, it's on the 22nd of June from 7 till 8 p.m. via Zoom. And obviously I can send you all the information about it if you'd like to go, but either you could let us know now or email myself or Catherine after the meeting. But I think it would be great if we could get at least one representative who's able to go to that.
How many Shine units here? I'll be happy to go along.
Oh, that's brilliant, Shahid. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
You can send me the details.
We'll send you the Zoom link. Thank you.
Sounded like Transformers, like there and that little bit. Angela, any other updates?
We could move on to the NASACA updates. Item
thank you.
11, or yeah.
Yep.
Some NASACA updates. They have issued a report on SACRE funding, and that was in the agenda pack. I know Emily is happy to answer any questions about that if anybody has any.
I was just going to remind members, thanks Angela, that and I can send this again if that would be helpful, but when the report first came out, Catherine did email it to everyone, and she also emailed everyone the information that I provided to NASACA for the Freedom of Information request about the funding situation in Wokingham. So we'll circulate that again with the minutes in case that would be helpful. But yes, if anyone has read that report or reads it after this meeting and you have any questions for me about how the Wokingham SACRE is funded, then obviously I'm happy to answer questions. I think overall I would just say that I said to Angela, if I felt the Sacre was lacking in funding, I would be very happy to be campaigning for more money from the local authority. But I feel we actually have sufficient money to do the things we want to do and need to do. But as I say, I'm really happy to answer any questions relating to that report.
Thank you, Emily. Angela, was there any other bits on that?
Just the NASCA conference and AGM was held on the 24th of May. I attended as well as David. So David might have something he'd like to say about that as well. The full summary document will be sent to members. That came out this morning. I can just give some headlines. Just to say that there was a keynote by Denise Cush that talked about different sources of authority. The theme was authority, and that was really helpful and apposite, I felt. The second keynote speaker then was Richard Quay of Ofsted, their lead for RE. And he talked about the RE curriculum being a narrative over time. He talked about those different types of knowledge in RE as well, as development of skills. There was a question time panel, as well as a variety of workshops, and Anne Andrews presented, assisted by me, but not really assisted by me because she did absolutely fine by herself. She presented the Real People, Real Faith workshop, so we were there, and we were we were stars of the show, and people thought it was really great. And Anne Andrews has been elected to the NASCA executive now as well. So we've got one of our own Pam Berkshire people on that executive. There are links to the Zoom recording, PowerPoints of some of the workshops and so on, and a link to those will be in the summary documents as well. The Westhill Awards were also announced, and the winners this year were Bromley, Leeds, Nottinghamshire, Tameside and Wolverhampton. So congratulations to those Sacres. And I think that was about all, and more detail is in the summary document that's going to come out.
Thank you, Angela. Any questions?
Can I just say, I mean, I found it very interesting, and it gave me a new perspective of RE, because probably from my knowledge of school and things like that, my RE perspective was totally different, and I knew how it has evolved with the authority of it. I did find occasionally, not being an educationalist, that there people spoke in educational jargon and so on, and that's expected, and I understood that, but that was my only, if you like, slight comment. But I understood that because it's an educational sector which was in there, and I was in some ways an interloper in that way. But I found it very interesting as well.
Thank you for sharing that, David. Item 12, any other business from any members? Just having a look down the list, see if any hands. Emily.
Yeah, just a very quick one. Thanks, Stephen. We've just had an email from a local Hinduism charity for Reading and Wokingham, and they've organised a teachers appreciation event. And actually the Sacre Hub was asked if they could nominate a teacher to go along. I don't think we've yet got one. Unfortunately, it's happening on a Friday evening from 6 to 7:30 on the 2nd of July on Zoom. But if there are any teachers who are Sacre members who would like to go to that, it's going to be lots of teachers sort of sharing their experiences of the last year and being appreciated by this Hindu charity. So it sounds like a very lovely event. If anyone would mind giving up a Friday evening, then please let us know if you'd like to go to that. Any teachers? Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Paris?
Hi, yes, apologies. I didn't manage to butt in at the beginning there with my little one running around. Just to mention to Catherine, with places of worship, I have strong links with Corpus Christi, the Catholic Church in Wokingham. I'm a parishioner there myself, as RE lead at St Teresa's, and also to, I think it was Beth and Philippa, if you need to contact the diocese, Again, we have really close links with the Diocese of Portsmouth, so I can help you there to make contact with the relevant people.
Thank you, Paris. That's really appreciated. Any other business? I do have one very small part too, but I'll do that shortly. Looking at the agenda, so item 13, dates of the next meeting is Monday, the 8th of November, 2021. I think, Emily, is it if we plan for virtual and then we'll go from there? Is that appropriate from the sort of like LA perspective?
I would say so, yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, we'll be in touch, obviously, in the autumn term when we see how things are there.
Okay, all right, thank you. And just finally, thank you everyone for. Okay, sorry. Bye, Philip. Have a nice summer. Thank you for coming along this evening. First of all, just thank you for everything this year. It's been a funny old year once again, but I think, as always, I do genuinely believe Woking is the best Sacre in all of the UK. And whenever we're at a hub meeting, Beth and myself are constantly saying how amazingly active everyone is and how committed everyone is as well. So just thank you. It's been a pleasure again to be the chair of the Woking Sacre again this year. And just thank you to Emily for all the support that she gives us through the local authority. Thank you to Catherine, who's newly on board as our new clerk, who's doing an amazing job, I think. And finally, just a huge thank you to Angela, our amazing advisor. Would be stuck without you. So just thank you to all of you yourselves. Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind